my wife stole our house for her new boyfriend. By the time she realized what I did in return, it was already too late. I'm a 41-year-old staff sergeant with the 82nd Airborne named Logan. When Sabrina decided she was done waiting, I had been in Kandahar for 4 months. It said, "Let's be adults about this." 3 sentences made up the message itself. The paperwork had already been filed with her. She had already completely depleted our joint account. She had already moved into our Spokane home with her new lover, Jeremy. After reading the email again, I shut down my laptop, showered in the shared restroom, dressed for work, and kept quiet. That night, when I returned to my cot, my response was simply, "Understood." That was it. No dispute. Don't beg. The present situation is not a threat. My bunkmate Reed McKinley saw that something was strange. Without raising his eyes from his book, he said, "You good, man?" "Yeah," I replied. "Just some stuff back home." Then he nodded, and it was over. Guys in the military know when to back off. To be honest, I wasn't shocked. Things had altered 6 months prior to deployment. Little stuff. Sabrina ceased to inquire about my day, began working late hours answering phones at the dentist's office. I began going to the gym 3 times a week, but I never felt like I was working out. New attire, new acquaintances I've never met. Her phone has new passwords. I didn't go up against her, didn't begin following her around or looking through her communications. I'm not like that. I wasn't blind, though. I therefore took some silent action of my own. Just precautions, nothing spectacular. The birth certificate, marriage license, property deed, which, thanks to the VA loan, only had my name on it, and military benefits documentation were among the vital documents I was able to secure in a storage facility across town. Things that were important to me, like my mom's old silver and my grandfather's watch, were moved to the same apartment. I also started transferring a portion of my paycheck to a different bank after opening a separate account there. Not enough for her to notice, but enough so that if something went wrong, I wouldn't have to start over. She embraced me at the airport the night before I deployed and whispered, "Stay safe, okay?" Her eyes were dry, as if she were bidding farewell to a colleague rather than a spouse who was leaving for battle. I ought to have realized it then. I still hoped I was mistaken, though. No, I wasn't. I had prepared for this occasion, but she was unaware of it. She also failed to realize that I never initiate arguments. I do, however, finish them. In 2010, I ran into Sabrina at a friend's cookout. I stayed in Spokane with my friend Jason in between trips. Despite completing nursing school, she ended up working as an administrative assistant at a dentist's office. When she said, "Less stress," after 8 months, we were married. Sabrina never really understood why she used to say she was proud of my service. Her father managed a bank. Her brother works as a chemist. Her family is not in the military. She kept asking when I would obtain a real job, not understanding that after 15 years, the Army was more than simply a job I was doing to pass the time. In 2014, we purchased our home. It was ours, nothing special, peaceful area, tiny yard, and 3 bedrooms. Since the VA loan was in my name was the only one on the mortgage. However, since sharing is what married people do, I included her in the deed. A year after our marriage, my father passed away. An attack of the heart while shoveling snow. 3 years later, my mother died. Lung cancer, although she had never smoked. I got some money from them. Sabrina and I could pay off our student loans and still have some money left over, but it wasn't a windfall. During our marriage, I deployed 4 times, twice to Iraq and twice to Afghanistan. Sabrina appeared a bit more aloof every time I returned home, a bit more agitated. It was as if she were acting out a part she had outgrown. She once informed me I didn't sign up to be a military wife after I suggested that I would re-enlist for an additional 4 years. I'm tired of being alone all the time. I knew that. Yes, I did. However, I only ever felt like I belonged in the Army. I did my job well. I was relied upon. Things began to change in 2019. Initially, the issues were minor. When I called during her girls' nights, Sabrina became agitated, began discussing her friend Melissa's divorce and how she was living her best life now. Started saying that we no longer shared many things in common. I recommended therapy. We were just going through a period, she explained, but we were okay. Then came working late into the night, spending the weekends with strangers, the new attire. She seldom ever used the gym membership. I ought to have gone up to her. However, I don't deal with things that way. I never did. I learned to ponder before I speak from my dad, to confirm before I take action. I watched then, and I silently got ready, because I had a gut feeling that something was about to happen. You also learn to trust your instincts in this life. I was seated in the mess hall 2 weeks after receiving the divorce email when my phone chimed. An alert from our banking app. $88,500 is another withdrawal. Nearly everything remained. I put down my fork and launched the application. The amount in the joint account had dropped to $22.37. We lost the $47,000 we had saved up over the years, transferred entirely to an unfamiliar account. One of the soldiers from my platoon, Murphy, looked over. Bad news? My phone was locked. Nah, just some account stuff. I made a call to our bank from the base phone center that evening. Sabrina had been shifting money for weeks, it turned out. Start with small quantities, then bigger ones. The day after my deployment, the major transfers began. After hanging up, I stood for a while in the corridor, observing men giggling, phoning their parents, spouses, and children. Around me, everyday life was going on, but mine was on fire. It was then that Reed McKinley discovered me. Heard from Alvarez that you looked like you'd seen a ghost at dinner, he stated. What's up? Normally, I don't divulge private information. However, Reed McKinley had previously saved me from a dire circumstance in Kandahar. I had faith in him. My wife emptied our accounts and moved her boyfriend into our house, I said. Sent divorce papers while I was on patrol last week. The typical responses from Reed McKinley were, no, I'm sorry, that's rough, and you'll find someone better. What's your plan? He inquired. I'm not sure yet, I said. He gave a nod. Let me know if you need anything. I had trouble sleeping that night. My laptop came out, and I signed in to our home security system. I could access something remotely that Sabrina most likely forgot. We caught a strange truck on video in our driveway. Our dog was being walked by a man I had never seen before, making use of my coffee mug. My Seahawk sweatshirt is on. Sabrina was laughing in the kitchen, which I had remodeled on my own during my most recent vacation. Something changed within me. Something colder. Not precisely rage. Clearer. I took out my phone and shut down the laptop. Compiled a list. Called Derek Langford, a friend from the Army who went on to practice law. Examine the terms of the VA loan. For emergency leave, speak with the Master Sergeant. Examine home refinance documentation. Sabrina made a passing reference to this last year. Verify my military pension account's security. I no longer felt depressed. I was not even angry. I felt concentrated. It was as if I were organizing a mission. Emotion was no longer the issue. This issue has to do with strategy. I emailed Derek Langford at 0500 before my shift began, stating that I urgently and discreetly needed legal assistance. An hour later, he said, call me. Only use a secure line. I knew exactly what I had to do when I ended that call. I didn't have to shout. I didn't have to make threats. I didn't have to face her at all. All I had to do was wait, observe, and allow her behavior to set the trap. After 2 months, I returned to the United States. I kept my return home a secret from Sabrina, didn't give a call, did not send a text. I just called Derek Langford after checking into a motel in downtown Spokane using a new name. 10 miles out of town, we met at a diner. According to him, you look like hell, as he slid into the booth. My response was, feel like it too. I was given a folder by Derek Langford. Everything we talked about, including the bank statements, loan documentation, and the house deed, as well as this. He took out another piece of paper. Found something interesting when I was digging into your finances. The application was for a refinancing, bearing my signature. It wasn't my signature, though. Not exactly. They attempted to copy it, but lost the details. The middle initial was incorrect. It wasn't my stroke pattern either. Even though I already knew the answer, I asked, Sabrina did this? Derek Langford gave a nod. That was 3 months ago. With the equity, $330,000 was extracted. That requires your signature because the VA loan is only in your name. Forge my signature, borrow money against our home, then pay off our debts and file for divorce? I said, busy woman. According to Derek Langford, it gets better. Her partner was identified as a co-applicant. He has a history that includes 2 DUIs and a 2019 fraud charge. I inhaled deeply. What choices do I have? Several, answered Derek Langford, but first you need to decide what you want. I considered it. What is legally mine is what I want. Additionally, I want her to comprehend the repercussions. Derek Langford grinned. Then, here's what we do. I drove past our house the following day. Sabrina's car was in the driveway, but her boyfriend's pickup was gone. For a while, I parked down the street and observed. I considered approaching her and banging on the door, but that wasn't the idea. I went to the bank by car instead. Met the loan officer who handled the refinance processing. I presented my military ID to him. I showed him my driver's license's actual signature, presented the falsified documents to him. His face turned white. I'll need to report the issue immediately. I understand, I replied. I've already filed a police report. That evening, Sabrina texted me. Jeremy reported that someone was asking inquiries at the bank. Who have you been speaking with? I didn't answer. I visited the county clerk's office the following day. I submitted documentation challenging the refinance on the grounds of fraud. Formally registered notice that I must be present for any changes to be made to the property. Sabrina called 2 days later. I let the voicemail go. We need to discuss, Logan. Regarding the house, the bank called. What are you doing? We can talk about the divorce like grown-ups if that's the case. Like adults is precisely what she said in her email. I haven't replied yet. That afternoon, Derek Langford gave a call. The refinance funds were frozen. Furthermore, your truck has been driven by your wife's boyfriend, correct? The one with your name on it? Yeah. This morning, he was stopped. He was operating a vehicle with a suspended license due to previous DUIs. They seized the car. Good, I replied. He had some intriguing items in the truck as well. Prescription pads from Sabrina's workplace, the dentist's office. They weren't blank. I shut my eyes. Prescription pads that she has been stealing? It appears that way. The cops are looking into it. I perched on the side of the motel bed after hanging up. The issue was becoming more significant than I had anticipated. I needed to call Sabrina and warn her about previous behaviors. Then I recalled the footage from the security cameras. My dog, my home. My life was thrown away as if it had no significance. No. Now this was the way. I was unable to go back. Furthermore, I really didn't want to. The following morning, I met with the bank fraud detective. Thompson was his name. A short man, with a coffee stain on his tie and weary eyes, was present. According to him, this happens more often than you'd think, as he scattered papers over his desk. The spouse deploys. The other spouse recognizes a chance. Now, I inquired. The money from the fraudulent refinance has been frozen. However, there's a problem. Part of the funds has already been spent. How much? About half, $14,600. I bent over. Where did it disappear to? Thompson paused. I'm not supposed to share that information. I live there. My name was faked. My money was taken. After giving me a slow nod, he turned his computer screen in my direction. These are the transfers out of the refinance account. I looked over the list. Miles Hargrove received several transfers. Not Jeremy. I had never heard of this person before. Miles Hargrove is who? I inquired. Thompson gave a shrug. Not my department, but you should ask your lawyer to subpoena these records. As soon as I got out of the bank, I called Derek Langford. Miles Hargrove? He said it again. Let me run a check. He returned the call an hour later. I got it. A real estate agent is Miles Hargrove, specializes in cash deals and rapid sales. She was planning to sell our house, I replied. The realization hit me hard. It appears that way. Most likely, he used the deposits as earnest money to start the listing process. This is where things start to get interesting, though. Spencer and Travis Colburn had previously done business together. What is Travis Colburn? Is that the boyfriend of your wife? Yes. They've closed 3 deals together in the past 2 years. I took a seat on a park bench and tried to think about this. So the affair wasn't just Sabrina leaving me for some guy. This was, Derek Langford answered, a planned operation, maybe, with caution. I investigated Travis Colburn a little. He exhibits a pattern, becomes involved with divorced ladies or spouses who are deployed. So far, I have located 3 cases. Each time, one of Spencer's clients purchases the woman's house for significantly less than its market value. Ryan sustains a cut. After that, he goes on. What about Sabrina? Did she know about this? It's difficult to say. Perhaps she is also a victim. Or perhaps she is complicit. I massaged my face. The affair was more than just Sabrina betraying me. There was more to this. Something planned. Other families in the service had also suffered. What are we going to do? I inquired. I've already contacted the FBI's Financial Crime Division, stated Derek Langford. This concerns VA loans, military members, and crossing state lines. They're intrigued. I sat drinking a beer in my motel room that night, contemplating everything. I was wondering if Sabrina had been manipulating me during our marriage, or if she had fallen for Jeremy's plot, pondering whether it was important at all. It buzzed on my phone. Sabrina once more. Give me a call, Logan. Jeremy was detained for operating your truck, and the bank is claiming that there was fraud. I have no idea what's going on. I spent a lot of time looking at the message. I then typed, Miles Hargrove is who? There were 3 dots. She began typing, then came to a standstill, began anew, ceased. Lastly, I don't know what you're talking about. $14,600, I wrote. Several transfers, listing of a house. 10 minutes went by with no reaction. Next. It's not what you think. I went to bed after shutting off my phone. Derek Langford called the following morning. The FBI is interested in meeting. For months, they have been looking into Ryan and Spencer. You might be the one to break it open, but you're not the first. I felt almost satisfied for the first time since receiving the divorce email. The truth was finally coming out, not because my marriage was over. At their Spokane field office, I had a meeting with the FBI officers, Agents Cole Maddox and Patel. My statement was recorded, retrieved copies of every document Derek Langford and I had collected. Agent Asha Verma clarified, your case helps establish a pattern, exhibits purpose, arrangement, turns it from a series of isolated episodes into a conspiracy. How about Sabrina? I inquired. My wife, ex-wife. The agents looked at each other. We're still determining her level of involvement, Cole Maddox stated cautiously. Did she ever bring up money problems? Is there pressure to sell I reflected. She insisted that we didn't have a house, that we ought to reduce our size. I didn't think it was necessary. With my wage, we were able to pay our mortgage. Patel wrote something down. When did that begin? Roughly 6 months ago. She must have met Jeremy at that time. What about the refinance? Cole Maddox inquired. Never brought it up to me. She falsified my signature while I was in the military. They had more inquiries, took additional notes. Once we finished, Patel gave me her card. We'll communicate. Don't confront Ryan or your wife in the interim. We must carefully construct this example. I gave a nod. Understood. I drove back to our area that evening, parked a block away from our residence. Jeremy must have gotten his truck out of the impoundment since it was back. Sabrina had lost her automobile. It buzzed on my phone. Sabrina texted, we must speak, in person. Tomorrow, come see me at Riverfront Park. Over breakfast the following day, I showed Derek Langford the text. Don't go, he said. Nothing good can come from talking to her right now. I won't, I said, but I want to know what she's doing today, while she thinks I'm meeting her. It was 9:30 a.m. when we drove to our home, parked on the other side. Sabrina emerged around 9:45, climbed into her car and drove off, heading toward Riverfront Park. What comes next? Derek Langford inquired. Now we wait, I concluded. After 20 minutes an automobile arrived. The door bears the emblem of a real estate agency, Miles Hargrove. Jeremy emerged to welcome him. In the driveway they conversed, then entered the building. Are we supposed to follow them? Derek Langford inquired. I gave a head shake. Not necessary. Last year, I installed both outdoor and interior security cameras. Cloud storage is where they upload. Derek Langford grinned. You didn't mention that before. I said, never came up, and took out my phone. I tilted the screen of the security app so Derek Langford could see it. In our living room were Jeremy and Spencer, Spencer was shooting pictures. Jeremy was pointing to the house's characteristics. I turned up the music. Spencer was stating, "Should list by the end of the week. I already have a buyer interested. As usual, a cash offer." "How much?" did Jeremy ask. "420. At 470, we list. They provide 420 units. Everyone is content." 420? Jeremy inquired. "We list at 470. They offer 420. Everybody's happy." "How about the husband?" Sabrina says. "He's causing trouble." Spencer gave a dismissive wave. "All military men are the same. They create noise, but they have duties and deployments. He'll accept a settlement to put an end to it." I looked across at Derek Langford. "You understand?" His phone was already capturing the feed. Every word. I sent Agent Asha Verma a brief message along with the security feed access. "This event is happening right now." After half an hour, FBI cars surrounded our home. Agents brought Spencer and Jeremy out in handcuffs, and I watched from across the street. My phone rang. "Patel agent. Got them on tape discussing the fraud scheme," she stated. In addition, there was an attempt to sell property under false pretenses, conspiracy, and wire fraud. "You will need to provide us with a formal statement." "Of course," I responded. "Your wife just showed up on the scene, Mr. Briggs. She is upset." I glanced down the road. As FBI officers hauled boxes of paperwork from our home, Sabrina stood on our lawn with her hands over her lips. "Whatever becomes of her?" I inquired. "That depends," Patel remarked, "based on her knowledge as well as based on your desires." I looked at Sabrina for a while. 13 years of marriage, the early years before the situation had become whatever it was, were good. I said, "I just want what's right at last." The federal case proceeded swiftly. In exchange for plea agreements, Jeremy and Spencer implicated one another and a number of other accomplices in what ultimately turned out to be a 3-state operation that targeted military families. Sabrina insisted she was unaware of the bigger plan, said that Jeremy had persuaded her that I was hoarding money and intended to deprive her of everything, claimed that she had just agreed to the refinance, which was his idea. Perhaps that was the case. Perhaps it wasn't. In any case, she consented to a compromise. Complete return of the money that was stolen, forfeiture of my military pension and any claim to the house, a confession regarding the fraud that was signed. I didn't file charges in return. 6 months after Kandahar sent the email, the divorce was finalized. I am not at fault. I am taking everything into account. Agent Asha Verma called me the day the final documents were signed. Travis Colburn received an 8-year sentence today for identity theft, fraud, and conspiracy. Spencer received a score of 12. I assumed you would want to know. Saying, "Thank you." Adding, "There's something else. We discovered proof that they have harmed 11 additional military families in this way. We developed the pattern with the aid of your case. Because of you, those families may receive their money back." I watched the sunset from my rental apartment's porch after we hung up. Consider those other families. Other men returned home to find their marriages and homes empty after deploying, believing they were safe. I didn't intend to be the one to shut down Jeremy and Spencer's business. All I desired was what was mine. However, sometimes unexpected outcomes occur. It buzzed on my phone. Sabrina texted, "I never meant for things to end this way." I didn't answer. Nothing else could be said. The house was sold a year later. No longer could I bear to live there. There are too many memories to recount. There was too much treachery in those walls. I purchased a modest cabin outside of Missoula, Montana, using the money. There are 2 bedrooms, 10 acres of land. Behind it, a brook flows. For kilometers, there are no neighbors. I left the Army early to retire. 20 years was enough. I had done enough. Scout is a German Shepherd that I recently acquired. Began working as a carpenter for residents. It was straightforward, yet it provided financial stability and kept me busy. The remainder came from my military pension. I thought about Sabrina occasionally, pondered her final destination. Derek Langford learned that she had returned to her Oregon homeland. Working in a different dental clinic, I suppose it's a fresh start. I no longer detested her. To be honest, I didn't really feel anything for her. She had already made her decision. I had too. I received a letter from a Fort Worth woman one evening. Her spouse was serving in the Navy when Jeremy and Spencer attempted to plot against her. As part of the case, the FBI had provided her with my name. "You don't know me," she wrote, "but you kept our house safe. I appreciate that you resisted when it would have been simpler to give up." After reading it twice, I pinned it to my fridge. On certain days, when the memories were too vivid or the silence was too loud, when I read the letter, I would keep in mind that it had all resulted in something positive. Jeremy was still incarcerated when I last heard from him. Spencer as well. For once, the system functioned. Regarding myself, I was figuring things out, day after day, quietly, constructing a new object, something that was impossible to take or manufactured or deceived. I had something that was all mine to myself. In the end, Logan didn't need to yell, fight, or burn it all down. He chose a different kind of revenge, the kind rooted in strength, silence, and peace. Sometimes the best way to win is simply to walk away and rebuild something better. If you've been betrayed, protect your peace. Set boundaries. Heal. Let go. Not for them, but for you. You deserve freedom, not bitterness. Have you ever faced a betrayal that changed your life? Share your story below. We're listening, because sometimes healing begins with being heard.